we'll go ahead. We'll kick off.
So we're recording there. Morning, everybody. Hope you're all well. So we are on Thursday morning. And what do we have prepared for Thursday? Where's my little list at?
Minimum viable product to kick off with, MVP, and then some early stage go-to-market strategies.
Yeah, and we have a guest lecturer again, or a guest speaker coming in again at after 2:30, who is Dr. Michael Hopkins from Ross Polymer.
Yes. I'm familiar with the company. Dr. Hopkins isn't the owner, is he?
No, he's managing director. He's got a big part of it, and he actually studied in TUS and worked here as a researcher as well with APT. He worked here as a researcher, so he's been in a number of projects as a PI as well, so understands the whole system and has an interesting story. Left college, come back, so
full circle. Brilliant.
Full circle.
And that's good. Nice tie into the technological university. Brilliant. So you're very welcome, everyone. Good to see you all here again this morning. I suppose useful just to reflect. We are now on our 4th day. We've had 3 sessions thus far. So we've covered off lean startup, value proposition canvas, business model canvas, customer discovery, so validating all of our assumptions and how you go about doing that. And then we've looked at the environment, if you like, in which we create value, taking in all of the key factors such as the economy, regulation, competition, and the importance, if you like, of staying abreast of all of that and understanding all of that and how it might impact your business and how it might impact the decisions you take to ensure that your business can be sustained and grow. So has anyone any burning questions before we move on to a complementary topic? Any questions at all, or did anyone have a go at listing out their direct competitors last night and their do nothing?
I have a question, Kieran.
Yeah, Barry.
I'm hesitant about taking up too much of your time.
Okay.
Because the focus of this week is on the business model canvas, in particularly you wanted to focus on the segmentation and the value proposition, and then for the segmentation you want us to kind of choose 3. My question is, how do you continue on with those 3 segments in terms of doing the research, and do you do it all at the same time, or are you better off focusing on one at a time? Because I find the more I do research on one segment, it's just there's so much information there. Maybe I'm going off track a little bit from what you're trying to do this week, but that's a question.
No, look, they're fair questions. I mean, typically on a project that I'm involved in that has a number of different potential customer segments, I will try to, well, first thing I'll try to do is speak to a couple of thought leaders in the general space, not necessarily in the segment itself, but in the sort of the general domain of what it is that we're looking at from a value proposition or a technology area perspective, and just to get some direction around where the low-hanging fruit might be, or where the beachhead might be, that sort of priority market. Because ultimately, as a startup, whilst there might be lots of opportunities across lots of different segments, you really do have to pick one, because there's only so much time and resources available to you. and you want to know which one.
So what I found, maybe this might help, is that the low-hanging fruit was in VR, right? And or visual analysis tools. And my three segments, one is corporate, and then another one, let's say, is construction company. But in order to use that technology, it's different. One, corporate, more than likely the person's going to be sitting at a desk for most of the day. So a visual analysis tool might be something on their laptop. Whereas if someone in construction, they're not going to be sitting at a desk all day. It's probably more than likely going to be something using VR, because we're going to have to replicate the environment, and it's more on your feet. And what I'm struggling to do is how to like, that's two different types of uh
Application
technologies, or yeah.
technologies and application. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I would have the conversations with both, have a few early conversations with both. Like if you have 3 or 4 conversations with both, you'll get a sense of the you know, the pain and the extent of the pain across each. You know, so you'll understand, is there a greater pain in corporate, for example, than there is on construction? And you'll try to understand the why behind that. And then you'll also look at the motivation for a solution. And look, if there's a greater pain and a stronger motivation on the corporate side, and that's easier for the reason that you've just outlined in terms of them sitting at a desk and having a computer in front of them, and you know that allows for easy integration with your solution, then
Right.
that's the one you focus on.
Okay.
If construction's, you know, a bit not sure whether they have a problem, or you know, if the problem isn't as clear, or the extent of the problem isn't as clear, and it looks like there's going to be a lot of challenges in terms of implementation, you know, you just weigh up the two. And if corporate's easier, then you'll really, you know, I think you'll be led by that, and you'll focus on that.
Right.
But again, if there's other reasons, you know, if the market is saying to you, look, we have a real problem here in construction, and we badly need a solution to this problem, and you know, then you'll engage with that market to
Yeah.
understand all of that, but also to understand their view of how that might happen.
Yeah.
You know, so you'll seek their views around how can we make this is the approach, this is the technology that we have available to us. You know, there's lots of ways in which we can deploy this. What do you think?
Yeah.
How might that work? You know.
Spot on. All right. Thanks, Karen.
Brilliant. Thank you. Right, let's jump into today then. So as I say, MVP, minimum viable product, and an early stage go-to-market strategies. So you know, we are looking at this from the perspective of startups, people with ideas, and how you might move those ideas forward. There's lots of go-to-market strategies for corporates, you know, which are about demand generation, but that's not really what we're going to be focusing on. We're meeting you where you're at. So we've talked to some degree around the general principles of lean startup, and you know, so the whole customer centricity, you know, focusing on identifying and understanding the customer job pains and gains. All very, very important. We're going to talk a wee bit today about rapid experimentation, how you might test assumptions and ideas quickly and at a low cost. Minimum viable product, and we're going to get into, you know, about creating a very basic version of the product or service that includes only those essential features needed to solve a customer problem, and the importance of, you know, that basic aspect, and then the whole pivoting and persevering. In other words, taking all of the information that you're gathering up with all of this testing, and saying, okay, well, what does that tell us, and what course do we need to take on the back of that? So these principles are all designed to help entrepreneurs create products and services that are more likely to meet the needs of customers. So it's about increasing the probability of success, as I've indicated, and to do so in a way that's efficient, cost effective, and adaptive to changing circumstances. The lean startup begins with an approach of design, build, measure, learn, and then cycle back. But it has an appreciation that you can't just build things without talking to people. And that's what the whole customer discovery bit was on Tuesday. Going out there and having those meaningful conversations to understand the customer jobs, pains, and gains. But you reach a point where you can't just keep talking to people without building something. And that's when the whole concept of market testing and using things like minimum viable products comes in. So MVP experimentation is how potential customers would react if an idea or a product existed, albeit at the early stage in a very basic form. So it's a version of the product with only the core features, and the core features that relate to your core value proposition assumptions, that focus on, in some way meeting that need, albeit in a very basic form. It's about developing something very quickly and getting it into the hands of customers as soon as possible. And it's not about perfecting anything. So the fundamental objective here is to get that feedback and allow you to iterate so that you can refine it based on what the customers are telling you and based on what they are articulating that they need. It's not about perfecting it. It's a very important consideration for entrepreneurs, because there's a natural inclination there to build something that won't embarrass you. But as Reid Hoffman says here, you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched it too late. So that tells you exactly what that sort of should calibrate your thinking around what an MVP is and what it isn't. Okay. So ultimately, it's launching something bad quickly without trying to perfect it. A basic version, as I said, focuses on the core function, launched to a small group of early adopters, people that you've already established some form of a relationship with, and getting it into their hands and testing with them, testing with users and gathering up feedback based on those real user experiences. There's a bit of preparation required prior to getting it into their hands, if you like, in terms of what the objectives of those early trials are. So you're defining some key metrics, if you like, that align with your hypothesis, and you're seeking to measure those rigorously and iterate quickly, and being very open to making changes. And you'll hopefully have got a good read on, the whole approach here within Lean Startup. And it's about not being precious. It's about not being emotionally attached. It's about, and something you'll hear me say, and you probably have heard me say it already, is it's about keeping the problem very, very close, keeping the customer very, very close, but keeping the solution very, very loose. You're trying to identify areas for improvement, and you're looking at ways in which you could change or pivot to ensure that you're more closely aligned with what the customer actually wants and needs. So if you think of something very, very simple here, like we need to cross a river. Let's go back to a very primitive time. What might an MVP look like for crossing a river? It could be falling logs. So this is before there was ever a bridge made. It could be falling logs. It's crude, it's fast, but it works. It gets it from one side to the other. Stepping stones, uneven, risky, but we're making progress. Rafts or ferries, more effort, but still move people. Rope or pontoon bridges, getting a little bit more sophisticated, temporary, fragile, but again, could be enough. the MVP is the same. It doesn't have to be pretty. It doesn't have to last long. It just has to prove that people can and will cross in the context of this particular scenario, that there's demand on the other side, and gives you some sense of what type of bridge might be needed. And where founders get stuck is they're waiting for that perfect bridge. They're arguing over the color of the bridge, or the size of the bridge, or the weight limits of the bridge. Meanwhile, customers are still stranded on the bank, and you're getting absolutely no feedback from them. So it's a boundary object. It should help you understand the pain, the customer pain, whether it's solvable. It speaks to the business aspect of it, whether there's a value there, and that they're prepared to pay, etc. It speaks to the design, that minimum experience visible, and it speaks to the tech too, and start informing you as you move forward. Here's a very simple video I'm just going to play here, just demonstrating another form of MVP. So the focus, as I say, is, and there's lots of forms. We'll talk about the various forms of MVP. But as I say, it's focusing on something that could perhaps look like the real experience that a potential customer will have if that product or service were available. And this is that particular one's called a Wizard of Oz MVP. I think you could maybe understand the analogy there. So you're about, it's about designing like you were right, testing like you were wrong, and trying to focus on your falsifiable hypotheses, if you like. And it's just a diagram from the Strategizer Testing Business Ideas workbook. So treat it as a continuous learning loop. So you're using that feedback and insights to inform the next iterations, continually seeking feedback, continually iterating till you get to the point where you've got a very good idea as to what customers actually want, need, care about. Any new feature needs to be scrutinized. Have enough customers ask for it. For the expense, is there a return on investment, etc. So as I've indicated, hold that problem you're solving closely, hold the customer closely, but the solution is going to be very much defined by the customer. And build it fast with extremely limited functionality. It's just a base to iterate from, and don't fall in love. Don't fall in love with any aspect of it. It's the customer that needs to do the falling in love piece. So there's lots of different types of MVP here. The simple sketches, the wireframes, the mock-ups, that gives people a sense of what it might look like. There's landing pages, so web page that encourages visitors to perform a desired action. That desired action might be just to, sign up. If you've given them enough information around what it is or what might be coming, to determine how much demand is there likely to be. And there's various tools for creating landing pages very, very easily. Quick MVP, Unbounce, etc. A demo video could be described as an MVP as well, just describing what a product does in detail. Or just something that's cobbled together, a collection of mini features designed to gather feedback to improve an overall product. Wizard of Oz I've already told you about there, and you've seen an example of it. So that's something that just looks functional from the outside, but it's operated manually by a wizard behind the curtain, if you like. Concierge, but creating a customer experience and delivering value manually where people involved are oblivious to the customer. Crowdfunding, probably not an MVP per se, but there are obviously lots of crowdfunding sites out there where if there's a good story told, and it's obviously a very good way of validating the need for a proposed product, if people are prepared to put money into its development, and perhaps for something like touch in return, and obviously prototypes then getting a little bit more sophisticated where it's a working product version to test viability, etc. Dropbox is the classic example. So Dropbox created a short demo video, a 3-minute video, and the video showed how seamless file syncing would work, with simple use cases. This is back in the day, and like saving one to one folder and accessing it instantly. So the big challenge there was big files and the inability to email big files, and how you could transfer files from one site to another, or to your customer, or to your supplier, etc., etc. And 15 years ago, 16, 17 years ago, that was a big challenge. Not so much these days, obviously. But the team targeted early adopters on forums like Hacker News and Dig, and the results were quite astonishing for them. They clearly communicated the value proposition without coding a full product, and they generated a surge of interest with a waiting list of tens of thousands of signups overnight, which obviously validated that there was demand and proved the problem was real, and it provided the traction and confidence to raise funding and build the full product. So a simple, well-crafted demonstration can be enough to validate product market fit before writing major code. And on this particular concept, I was aware of a project in the north of Ireland that was quite similar, actually. And as a concept, it was developed before it was put into the hands of customers. It got funding from the agencies, public sector agencies in Northern Ireland. It won a few competitions. Like, for example, there's a competition called the Intertrade Seed Corn Competition, which it won outright. They made the mistake of trying to perfect their product, and they took too long. And they got some early customers, good enough, but the interest from investors that they had been speaking to, where they were putting the investors on the long finger until they got their product ready, that interest waned, and they missed that opportunity. And they developed a kind of a lifestyle business that petered out when they really could have been the next Dropbox, if you like, because they were ahead of the curve. This product came about before Dropbox, so it's a key learning, key lesson. That sometimes you don't need to build anything to achieve or to verify that there might be demand for what you're proposing. So just moving on from MVPs, unless there's any particular questions about MVPs. So so David Bland and Alexander Osterwalder got together and They produced a book called Testing Business Ideas. And one of David Bland's approaches to testing ideas is to map your assumptions. And okay, so the theory is that, behind every product or service, we have lots and lots of assumptions. And there are assumptions there that, if proven false, can make or break your initiative. So if you have an assumption that's incorrect, but you're progressing, you need to know that there's an incorrect assumption now that you can make a change. So assumptions need to be deconstructed, if you like, into specific areas to help focus on experimentation. And this is David Bland's whole area, and Alexander Osterwalder really, really liked it. So the two of them got together. So these assumptions, the team needs to make them explicit and frame them in such a way that they can be challenged. And mapping out the assumptions is better when it involves cross-functional team. So there's a whole process called assumptions mapping. And the focus here is on helping to define what needs to be true for an idea to work. What needs to be true for an idea to work? So the business model canvas, in getting together, David Bland and Alexander Osterwalder sort of mapped what's called the 3 lenses of human-centered design to the business model canvas. So the 3 aspects, if you like, of the human-centered design, this was developed by IDEO, is desirability, a product that people want or need; feasibility, a product that can be created with new or existing technology; and viability, a product that ultimately will be profitable. So when mapping it across here, you can see, where the desirability aspect of it is. So it's essentially from if you remember the theater analogy, from the stage where the performance is, the value proposition column, across to the right. Behind the stage then is all of the feasibility. Can we build it? Can we do it? And then the cost structure and the revenue streams at the bottom. That's your viability. That's your sanity check. Is the number at the bottom greater than or equal to, the number at the bottom right, greater than or equal to the number at the bottom left, to make the whole effort worthwhile, if you like. So what they did was, and this is a process that I would run with teams at the very, very early stage, just to start crystallizing some thinking. So for each of these: desirable, do they want this; feasible, can we do this; viable, should we do this? There are a set of questions that can be posed. And this is run in a sort of a quick fire format, like a brainstorming format, if you like, whereby I put these questions up on Miro board, and I have little virtual post-it notes on Miro, and we're just, answering questions quickly. So who are the target customers for our solution, or who do we think they are? What problem do our customers want to solve? Brainstorm the problems very quickly. How do they solve them today? The do nothing, perhaps, approach, or the workarounds. And why can't our customers solve these problems today? Trying to get an understanding of that. What's the outcome that they want to achieve? And look for why would our customers stop using their current solution? So just quick answers to these questions are very good. Can we do this? What's our biggest technical or engineering challenges? What's our biggest legal or regulatory risks? So again, just getting a team, 4 or 5 people that are involved in a project around a table, or over Teams or a Zoom call, and coming up with our best guess answers to all of this. Okay, so for each of these questions, then you should have 7 or 8 or maybe 10 post-it notes with lots of answers, random answers. that may be right or wrong, may make sense or not, but it's a starting point. And again, it's to allow you to start crystallizing your thinking. So you'll take each of those post-it notes then, and you'll map them across to a 2x2. And this 2x2 is focused on, and I've actually going to change this from unknown known to what we have evidence for and what we don't have evidence for. So what's important that we don't have evidence for is really what we're trying to identify, if you like. So you're taking each of these answers on post-it note and you're mapping them across to your 2x2. You know, what do we deem to be important, but we have evidence for? And what do we deem to be important that we don't have evidence for? What's unimportant that we don't have evidence for, et cetera, et cetera. We're just mapping these across. And again, it's best guess stuff. May or may not be right, but it's a starting point for teams. And then, you know, as I said, no evidence and evidence important. So take a simple one, like we believe that medical device companies need a way of picking up on assembly-related quality control issues in real time. So it's about creating assumptions that can be converted into testable hypotheses. So you've taken an answer, you've put it across, and you're evolving that into something that says, okay, this is our belief, but fundamentally, if this belief is wrong, we have a problem. And Strategyzer came up then with this test card. And the focus here is to determine what needs to be true for an idea to work. So you're taking that falsifiable hypothesis and you're plugging it in here. We believe that within your falsifiable hypothesis. And to verify that, this is what we'll do. And as part of that test, then we'll measure. And we are right if the results are and they cross a threshold. Okay, so this is the Strategyzer test card. Quite a useful tool. So you can use these tools then to start performing experiments. And you can do that in the order of critical importance. So what needs to be true for your idea to work? If the first experiments obviously invalidate the most critical hypotheses, you might need to go back to the drawing board, rethink your ideas. But these early experiments should be fast, as well as being testable, obviously, and quite precise, not very broad, and discrete. So ultra fast at the top here, quick learning, napkin sketches, interviewing customers, partners, stakeholders, and the experiments themselves. So take a simple example. Now you don't need to read all of this, but just a quick one. It's a new type of micro needle. The focus is on safe and reliable self-administration. Avoiding dosing errors, accidental needle stick injuries, safe disposal and recycling of needles, and trying to overcome needle phobia. Simple value proposition where the existing products in the market don't really address those needs. So it's unmet needs. So what needs to be true for this idea to work using the Strategyzer test card? So we believe that patients, you could define it as a particular type of patients. For example, diabetics, experience self-administration, safety issues, dosing errors, and accidental needle stick injuries. So that fundamental hypothesis that, yeah, there's a problem with the existing solutions that are out there. And to verify this, we'll produce a landing page asking if patients are experiencing these explicit issues and inviting emails to sign up to a solution that addresses them. And this will be measured by the number of visitors that the landing page will receive and the number of email signups. So you might, indulge in some, low-level online advertising to small budget to try and drive traffic to this website, or you'll engage in forums, or you'll, do something that will make people aware of this website. And we'll know this is true when a number, 15 out of every 100 patients who visit the landing page sign up with a valid email address. And you can obviously, you have an audience, you have a captive audience, and then you can engage further with. Similarly, here's one here for a simple wastewater heat recovery system. The focus on this particular technology was restaurants and hotels, food processing companies as well. Companies that use a lot of hot water, and that heat, obviously, once the hot water is used, is wasted. So we believe that food processing companies have a strong desire to reduce their CO2 emissions associated with hot water discharge and are actively seeking solutions. To verify this, we will perform a keyword search in the key UK geographic markets. This will be measured by the number of online searches on selected keywords and phrases each month on search engines. And we are right if the search volume for related keywords and phrases is over 50 searches per month. And again, you can go into Google Trends, you can plug in keyword searches, you can monitor over time, and there's a few tools for doing this. And it'll give you a sense of how often these keywords are searched for in a geographic area. So it's a signal that we're looking for here, not definitive by any means when you're looking at this kind of methodology. But this taken in conjunction with other tests, other falsifiable hypotheses and tests, and obviously a customer discovery, can yield you lots of very, very good information. Barry, I see your hand up there.
Yeah. Hi, Kieran. It's kind of bringing my question is back to the assumption map. And you have three different parts. One is, do they want this? The next one is, can we do this? And the other one is, should we do this? I can imagine that for the first one, going through the customer discovery is the first, do they want this? And then maybe the second part might be like a business plan. Can we do this? And then maybe the third part might be what you decide to go on and do your research in to kind of see where is the evidence there. Would I be correct in saying that? And then also, is this just an opportunity just to see if in a group setting, if you can get a few leads from people within that group without having to go down before going down that route, which is obviously a longer route to customer discovery, the business plan and the research. Am I right?
I mean, you're right in saying this is very early activity.
Yeah.
So this is before you've done any customer discovery. This is when you have an idea, you don't even know if you can build it. You don't even know what the solution should be. And obviously you have to understand the customer jobs, pains and gains before you start solutioning. So this is just get some thoughts down on a page. So I've used the analogy before, like seasoned entrepreneurs think like this intuitively. These are the questions that they mull over in their heads intuitively. But these are tools for people who aren't seasoned entrepreneurs, people who perhaps heretofore haven't been entrepreneurial in their thinking. So it gives them some of the key considerations when considering an idea. So you're asking yourself these questions, and you're just together with colleagues, if there's a startup team, or if there's a few people involved, or if there isn't, you're just bringing a few people together, perhaps some of them that could be potential customers, come up with lots of answers to these questions, some of which might, you know, as with any brainstorming session, you'll put anything down on the page. There may be logic to it, there may not. That's fine. But it's as with a lot of these tools, it's about crystallizing your thinking, Barry, and allowing that thinking then and that to move forward.
Yeah.
So you're doing something with those thoughts and you're moving them forward so that they can start to make sense. And obviously a good, things that you need to know are what is important that you don't have evidence for. So these are just ways of coming up with responses to, the things that are important that you need evidence for. And these are then simple ways in which you might be able to test that, of which customer discovery will form part, if you like. The customer discovery is a very important phase, if you like, in the overall evolution of an idea. But these are complementary activities and complementary tests that can be done, all with the objective of validating or invalidating and determining what needs to be right for my idea to work. That makes sense?
Yeah. Thanks a million, Kieran.
No bother at all. So so what needs to be true for this to work? As I say, this one here was in some form of a landing page. That's one way. And look, there can be a few different ways of doing this. You can obviously have a focus group. You could have, for example, 10 or 12 people in a room that are all self-injecting themselves on a regular basis and start asking the open questions. The Google Trends piece. So this is just a test that can be done. And as I say, you can put a threshold on it and it gives you some sense of it. It's a signal. These experiments need to be testable. So obviously you need to be able to run them in a way that gives you a result. So a hypothesis is testable when it can be validated or invalidated based on evidence. So we believe Generation Z prefers pop-up stores over branches. That's not really a good testable hypothesis. It's very difficult to test that. Whereas if you can define it further to say, we believe young adults between 18 to 24 will spend more time in temporary pop-up stores that are placed in co-working spaces compared to traditional banking branches, then that's something that's a little more testable. You can actually conduct an experiment on that one, whereas the first one you couldn't. It needs to be precise. So, a hypothesis is precise when you know what success looks like. So ideally it describes the precise what, who, and when of your assumptions. So like we believe young adults don't plan for the future is not a very precise, testable hypothesis. Whereas we believe that majority of young adults between 18 to 24 don't save more than $100 or €100 per month for their retirement. That's testable. There are ways in which you can test that by engaging with that demographic. And discrete. So it's discrete when it describes only one distinct, testable, and precise thing that you want to investigate. And again, we believe our digital platform helps us increase conversion rates and save money in call centers. Very hard to test that. Whereas we believe our digital platform will help us increase conversion rates by 25%, or we believe our digital platform will help us save 200 million in call centers over 3 years. First one there is probably testable. The second one, obviously, there's a 3-year experiment that needs to happen. But early tests can point in the direction of whether you're actually saving money or could be saving money for them or not. What needs to be true for your idea to work? I ask you to take 5 minutes, 5 or 10 minutes to have a think about that. For those of you, obviously, that have ideas. what needs to be true for your idea to work? We believe that what? Many have we with us today, Anna?
Today we have 9, 11 including ourselves, so there's 2 more.
Good.
9. They've stuck with us this week, Kieran.
Good.
Sorry, Kieran, you just covered the complete card there. Sorry.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Yeah. There you go. I mean, look,
Nice.
you can, if you want, have a think about how you might test your hypotheses. And I suppose tonight, what I wouldn't mind you trying, is the whole test card. So come up with your hypotheses. Have a think about what test you could run that would verify, or validate or invalidate. So it's a falsifiable hypothesis, what you could measure, and what's your criteria. So that's your homework for tonight, your informal homework. If you're struggling to get the slides, I know the slides should be shared. I've updated them slightly, Anna, so I might send you another updated version. But if you're struggling to get the slides, just Google the Strategyzer test card. You'll be able to find that online, no problem.
I've also popped in the chat there the link for the InnoBoost website, and you have the all the material is up there to date anyway, and the assignment and everything, just in case people don't realize that they can rewatch it at that point.
Yes. And Jacqueline, thank you for sharing a version of the Strategyzer test card. I'm hoping I've pronounced your name correctly there. Hey, folks. Anyone want to volunteer what needs to be true for your idea to work hypothesis?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a go, Kieran.
Good man, Ian. I knew you wouldn't let me down.
I was afraid you'd say that.
Well, I knew it was either going to be Barry, Ian, or Sean, but I went looking for Sean there, and I don't see him listed.
No. Okay, so again, this is a test card for this IPv6 consultancy idea. Okay, so first question is, we believe that consultancy is required to assist enterprise clients on this complex journey of IPv6 adoption. To verify that.
Okay, go ahead.
No,
go ahead, please. Yeah, take the next step there.
Yeah. So to verify that, we will conduct a survey of IT leaders in the university and research sectors who share the single ISP that provides this connectivity. So there's a single entity that provides them with this connectivity. So that's the idea there. And to measure it, strangely, the actual higher education sector is one of the poorest adopters of this technology, at about 8% adoption, where they don't even really measure it, which is a sign. Whereas actually the global adoption rate of IPv6 is at 49%. So it's something that can be very definitely measured.
Okay.
And
I mean,
the last one, we are right if we get customers. I suppose,
I mean, I think you might need to tighten up your hypothesis a wee bit. You know, in that we believe that you could say we believe that heads of IT, you know, so whoever it is that's in charge of IT in a third level college, we believe that heads of IT in Ireland see value in having this IP, you know, this protocol. So we believe that they see value in having this particular protocol. I think, you know, that you know, whether that comes via consultancy or some other route is you know, could be a further question down the line. Fundamentally, they have to see value in it first. So, and then, you know, to verify that, we will do something, and it might be just something as simple as surveying the heads of IT in the colleges and technological universities of Ireland, or in the universities of the UK or wherever. But we believe that they see value in it, and to verify that, we will do X, and then, you know, you will measure, and we are right if, you know, a level of them, a critical mass of them. You know, if 25% of them say yes, we do see value in this, and if that's 25% of a big number, like 25% of all of the universities in Ireland, then, you know, you could be onto something there. But I think you probably need just to pare it back a wee bit, because consultancy is one way of delivering that support. Fundamentally, for them to engage in services of a consultant, they have to see value in what that consultant would do. So I would try and hone in on the value piece first. And again, I'm just coming at that from you know, what you've said previously this week. That makes sense, Ian?
Yeah, I'm all ears on this, because as you said, you've been in this position with other things. You know, again, when you're making me think this way, yes, it is kind of step away from the technical. I suppose just the area is so vast. I suppose like one of the reasons you would be saying, you know, why people adopt this is that, as I said just there, on the 50% adoption by all of the bigger organizations, you know, that there's regulation and compliance and security requirements that will be achieved by this as well. I suppose it's just, again, that thing of just getting that message short and sweet isn't easy.
Yeah. I mean, and this is where the conversations come in, and it's good to you know, have a target focus with your testing, you know, and that target focus might be the university sector, and that's a captive market, if you like, in that you can easily, or relatively easily, have conversations with the people responsible. You know, so you want to know, do they see value in it? If not, why not? That'd be very valuable information for you. You know, so I dig into that, and there might be reasons why they don't see value in it, even after you've articulated the potential value proposition and why they might want to consider it. You know, if they're still saying no because, what comes after because, they're going to be very important to you.
Yeah, and look, I've been down that route actually quite a number of years ago with the that sector, and kind of have moved on from that. So like, I've actually participated in an IPP. Like, we've actually developed a product as well. So I'm trying not to talk about this, though, you know, in that there is enough just to concentrate on the consultancy part. But you know, I've spoken to regulators and that as well, like, you know, so we have kind of spread out and looked at all angles, because as I said, we're members of global forums on this. So there's lots of angles, but no, this is great to as I said, tighten it and just get the message.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ian.
All right, thanks,
okay,
Tim.
folks. Look, appreciate that. Thank you. We'll move ahead unless there's any particular questions anyone has.
I have a quick question, Kieran.
Yeah.
That, would it be fair to say that exercise might be a good step before you go on and do a pilot study, let's say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this sort of stuff, as I say, it's the early stage stuff. Hopefully, it's the relatively easy stuff to do, even easier perhaps than customer discovery for some people. So no, absolutely. You'd want to do this kind of stuff, quick, easy, developing testable hypotheses, and conducting a number of tests and having a look at that information and saying, okay, what's this telling us now? In the context of what might be a next stage of, customer discovery, or even running some form of pilot testing, etc., or MVP testing, etc. What is this telling us that might inform the next stage?
Perfect. Thanks, Kieran.
Barry, thank you. Okay, and then strategizers also come up with this learning card, just for reporting back, if you like, to a team or whatever. It's a summary of findings. So this is what we believed. This is what we observed. From that, we learned X. Therefore, this is what we're going to do on the back of that learning. And again, it's just having a record of it, and you're in a position then to share it. I'm going to play a quick video here. Barry, you might have seen it before. Owlet, it's a baby monitoring technology. This is a team that entered a business model competition in the US. They had an idea, and this is what they did to test that idea, who they spoke to, and all of the various experiments that they conducted. What was interesting about this, and there's a longer version of this video online, is that the panel was made up with Alexander Osterwalder, Steve Blank, and a few others, very well-known personalities, if you like, in the whole lean startup world. And the longer version covers the Q&A that came after this pitch. So I'm just going to play the pitch now. Hopefully my sound is still working. You can let me know if it isn't.
We're Owlet Baby Monitors, and we want to share the story of how this sock is bringing parents peace of mind. So our story starts with Tanner working in the hospital. He works with the technology pulse oximetry. You've all seen this. It's a little red light they put on your finger, monitors your vital signs. He found working with this day in, day out that there was a pain with it that he had experienced, and that pain was the cord. He found that patients didn't like it. He found that nurses didn't like it. It got tangled up. It got in the way. So he assumed that other nurses would feel the same way. So he went ahead to test that assumption. He thought, what if we had a wireless pulse oximeter? We could have nurses use it, and we could sell it through the hospitals. So in validating that, he went out and talked with 58 nurses. He found a really good response rate. 93% said they wanted to see this over the existing technology. However, going back to the hospital, talking with administrators, he got a very different story. This was not a pain for them. It was about money, and it wasn't cost-effective for them, and so they said no. So we learned a very valuable lesson. Your user is not always your customer. Even though we found a user that loved the idea and wanted to use it, they did not have purchasing power, and so going from the yellow, it goes back to red. It's unvalidated. So they're not our customer. We had to move on somewhere else.
A little closer, sorry.
Okay. This didn't cost a thing, and it only took about a week to validate. So we knew that we needed to pivot. Kurt Workman had experienced firsthand in his family the pain that comes from a child being lost to respiratory failure. And so he thought, what if we pivot, use the same technology in an in-home setting for infants? We can monitor vital signs, blood oxygen levels, heart rate, and report that to a parent, where if there's an emergency during the night, it will alert and alarm the parent, giving them peace of mind knowing that they'll have that type of alert. He had found, in addition, that SIDS is the #1 cause of infant death in the United States. It's often respiratory related, which increases parents' anxiety a lot. In addition, there's 4 million babies born in the U.S. every year. And so with that size, we figured and assumed that's a really big pain. I bet a lot of other parents feel this pain. So we went out to test that assumption. We started with our assumed solution, which was putting the technology into a smart anklet, putting it on the baby. It wirelessly would send that information to a relay station, which was capable of alerting and alarming the parents if there was an emergency, as well as pushing the information onto a smartphone for convenience. So we completely pivoted from our original idea. We started focusing on creating value in a new customer segment for parents in the home setting, helping bring them peace of mind. So we knew there was 2 types of risk we'd be facing in this. Market risk, will someone buy it? And technology risk, can we build it? We tackled market risk first because it was easier to get to and it was more important. We initially surveyed 105 mothers, and we found that on average they gave us an 8.5 out of 10 on wanting this product, thinking the technology was great. 96% said that they would use this technology. We got a lot of responses like, this is awesome, I want to buy one now, and take my money now and start selling it. We knew this was very early validation, but it at least pointed us in the right direction. We really validated this idea when we took the idea into a class project, for which we built a website, we made a video. The video in reality at the time was nothing more than just smoke and mirrors showing what the product could be or what it could do. We put it up on the website, and it leaked out. We didn't intend for this, but it got picked up by 40 news agencies in 13 different countries. A lot of big names picked up this story. And because of that, we received over 500 emails in our inbox. Most of these were from parents begging for the product, saying, we want the peace of mind you provide. We're not sleeping well at night. We're willing to buy a prototype if that's all you have. And so from that, we feel we really validated that, yes, there is a pain here. These parents want the peace of mind that this can provide. In addition, we had 15 distributors around the world reach out to us. Among these, one from our major competitor said they're willing to drop that account, which brings them $2 million in revenue per year, to pick up our account. The second, that's moving forward the fastest, wants to do $50,000 in pre-sales to get this into their market the quickest. The great thing is all of that validation, it came from virtually building nothing at that point. And so we feel that indeed, yes, we did validate that there is a pain here and there is a customer that we can service. That only cost us $220 and took about 2 weeks to determine.
So our next question was, how are we going to reach our customers? We initially thought through hospitals, but after talking with pediatricians and mothers, we realized that the best place to sell it would be in the retail location. When looking at how much it was going to cost us to make our product, we realized that at the end, the customers would have to be buying it at around $200. Our question was, are we really creating that much value? So we originally thought and assumed that we would have to rent the product. Our initial survey was pointing us in that exact same direction. We got out of the building, went and talked to the people over at Babies R Us, and they told us there's a huge span of different products as far as price goes, and that the ones that were being purchased the most were in the $200 range. We didn't believe the lady when she told us this, so we called 33 other baby stores, and they told us actually the exact same thing. We were completely wrong. 71% of the baby monitors being purchased today are in the $200 to $200 or $250 price point. And we learned that surveys can also lie if you don't word it correctly. We were asking, what would you expect to pay? But when we started asking, what's the maximum you would pay, that completely changed the results that we were getting. We also A/B tested this on our website. People thought that they were purchasing the product when they clicked on the reserve button at different price points. This allowed us to find out what the elasticity of the demand was and find our demand curve and find that the profit maximizing price was at $299. So we, in fact, were proved wrong, and luckily we will be able to sell the product. This cost us $30 and 3 weeks. The next question was, could we build it? And that went right with our next technology risk. The 2 factors that we needed to prove out was pulse oximetry and wireless transmission in this usage. We first did wireless transmission because it was easier. We built the proof of concept. It cost us $300 and 7 weeks, and it was able to do everything that we wanted it to, even though it looked kind of ugly. After proving that, the next question was, can we create pulse oximetry specific for infants? So we went back to the hospital. We interviewed the nurses. We watched how they were using the product, or the current pulse oximeters, and we realized that our design wasn't going to work. For technical reasons, we had to switch to a more sock-like design. We tested that sock-like design with over 120 hours of testing. We did it in 26 different homes and 7 overnight tests with parents. We are happy to see that with our new design, we could in fact build it. It cost us $500 and 12 weeks on working on that. Our next question, which unfortunately we didn't learn this until later in the game, was that we needed FDA clearance on this product. And the first person we talked to said it was going to cost us over $1 million. We had to figure this out. We talked to 16 professionals. We even talked to the labs that we need to work through, and we know it's going to cost us at maximum $200,000 in 13 months. We validated that, and it only cost us $200 in 3 weeks. But at this point, this validation was really bittersweet. We said, man, is $200,000 in 13 months and all that liability really running lean before we can even get a product into a customer's hands? Could we not create something that will be more minimal and less risky and start with that in the market? What was holding us up was the alarm. Alarm plus pulse oximetry means that you need an FDA clearance. We thought, well, what if we scratch the alarm? What could we do? We said, well, we'd have the same product that would still give you all these really cool things, and we could play with that data really in a lot of interesting ways. And maybe we could call it our infant health tracker. This was completely unvalidated, so we had to go back and revalidate whether or not this product with that slight tweak would be different. So we grabbed our clipboards and we headed out to a bunch of retail locations, and we interviewed 81 people in person. We gave them 4 pieces of paper and said, which one would you buy if you had to? And they had to choose between our product and then the 3 other types of product that they can buy in those same price points. We were amazed when 20% of them said that they would choose our product. And we also learned so much about our customer. It's not a one-size-fits-all customer. In fact, we really kind of have a whole range of customers. On one side, we kind of have like our hippie-type mom that's a lot less worried about these types of things. And then you also have the moms that's on the opposite side of the spectrum. The ones that were less worried told us things like, and we kept hearing it over and over, I wouldn't want an alarm on this. This would drive me crazy. And it absolutely floored us, but we realized that our alarm version wouldn't even capture part of the market. And by starting with a health tracker that they liked already, we'd be addressing a completely separate market, not cannibalizing our own sales, and starting with something that was a lot less risky to begin with. As for the parents who weren't worried, we would launch our next product a few months down the road after we'd learned from some risk and avoided some risk with our first product. So that was validated, and we learned so much more about how our customer base is segmented out. This cost us nothing, and it took about 3 weeks to do. Moving forward, we still need to validate a few things. We need to validate whether or not there's a few other subscription-like revenue streams, and we also need to find key partners that are in operations and have retail experience. We got all this done for just over $1,000 and 24 weeks. And we did a lot of validation and talked to a lot of people. Not just surveys, but over hundreds of people we one-on-one interviewed and tried to make fake sales with. We're really excited to be launching this summer with the non-alarm health tracking version that doesn't need FDA, and to lower risk, and then eventually 7 months later launch with our flagship product that we know will be a hit.
I wanted to add to that. So I'm a dad, and I can tell you firsthand, having kids is the most life-changing, amazing experience you can have. And at Owlet, we really hope to keep it that way. Thank you so much.
So you can hear from those guys, high energy, a lot of activity, very focused. They had a big panel, high-profile panel that they needed to try and impress, obviously. So they certainly set out to do that. But you can see how a lot of what they did brings together a lot of what we've talked about throughout the week, from utilizing the tools, the business model canvas, for example, to the customer discovery piece, to the market testing piece, to the development of MVPs, and the information that they were able to gather up on the back of all of that. To inform next stage, and next stage wasn't necessarily the development of an all bells and whistles, doing everything type prototype. There was logic and rationale as to why they took earlier steps to try and get early traction and validation. Okay, so I'm just going to move on slightly here now.
Sorry, Kieran.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I can't let this one go. Sorry, you can imagine from a technical point of view. Like my view on listening or watching that video clip is the actual device, the actual technical requirements of the device seem to be way down the list of priorities. When in fact, when they wanted to go FDA, and particularly like cybersecurity with this kind of thing, no mention of it. So I suppose, without trying to sound from a tech point of view, you know, dismissive of it. Like, how practical is it, you know, somebody taking off, designing something that is ultimately a piece of really critical personal data? I mean, all of the things we want to speak about, but they actually started with getting a product rather than actually having a device, and then trying to, you know, chicken and egg scenario, I suppose.
Look, there's probably a lot of information and activity that was happening in the background that would have come to bear in the latter stages of the customer discovery journey that they were on. So I'm guessing that there's a lot of things that happened that you're not hearing, or they weren't articulating within that pitch. But for sure, there's key considerations there that will ultimately come to bear. But as a company, you know, go look them up. I mean, that pitch was probably 8 or 9, maybe even 10 years ago. So as a company, they're now an established and hugely successful company that, you know, have launched and are selling baby monitoring products. So all of that obviously, you know, was considered at a time, perhaps not at that very early stage when they were trying to validate whether there was actually a market for it or not.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And what did you say they were called again? Just
they're called Owlet, OWLET.
okay, thanks. Sure.
Jacques made the point here. This approach is characterized from an American culture base. That is why the development feels weird. Good point. Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. And Jacques shared the owletcare.com website. So look, moving on then to early stage customer acquisition reality. So look, lots of large companies, large corporates are very focused on their on inbound sales and demand generation, and you know, utilizing lots of the modern ways in which you can maximize sales. But for a startup, for an early stage startup, you know, that's not really the reality. So early customers, typically for an early stage startup, are one, not found through active outreach and personal selling. So, you know, I do a lot of sort of customer discovery work. I do a lot of market engagement on behalf of startups. And you know, in that mode, as I've indicated already, you're always in non-sales mode. You're always looking for open, candid feedback. But it's a very good way of developing a relationship with someone that you're speaking with. And through that, I would secure interest from lots of companies in becoming a trial partner and becoming you know, a co-creator, if you like, or assisting in the co-creation process of an early stage idea. So just you know, brand recognition, SEO, inbound marketing, etc. For a startup, that won't deliver meaningful leads. So founders are the driving force, or need to be the driving force in getting first customers. Early stage success depends on hunting, your ability to be very proactive and getting out there, not waiting for the customer to come to you, because that just won't happen at the startup stage. So it's, you know, founder-led outreach, clear messaging, and targeted trial partners. That's what you need at the start to validate, refine, and prove your solution before you can start the whole scaling journey. So bear that in mind. Only founders really can pivot quickly on conversations. I've seen this. I've seen startups. I was commercial lead for a project that I wasn't staying with. It was clear from the outset that I was going to act as a commercial lead, but I was moving on then. Once we'd secured some trial partners, and someone then who was used to enterprise sales, came into the project, came into the team, and was essentially taking over the role of trying to generate further early customers, but they struggled, and it didn't work out. They struggled with this whole area of customer job pains and gains. They struggled with the whole area of having to pivot quickly. So there was challenges there for that individual, even though you would have thought perhaps that they could be a very good fit for the organization. And it was a solution that was very much targeting enterprise level companies with an enterprise software solution. So that direct contact is what's required, and that gives insights that scripted sales teams just won't pick up. So prospects can buy the founder's belief in solving their evolving problems. There's a credibility and vision that comes with the early team engagement with those customers, as opposed to someone coming in as a battle-hardened salesperson. So your phases of early customer work. We've talked about the problem validation. We've talked about the number of conversations that you might want to go out and have to explore the customer pains, to validate those before you build. It's very much a consultative tone. It's not a sales pitch. So it's being very curious about the problem, as I've already indicated, and letting go of your emotional attachment to a solution. But the goal is to confirm that the problem is urgent and valuable to solve, and there's a strong motivation there. You're then moving into the whole sort of testing business ideas, MVP stage, inviting them to test and shape the solution. And you're selling the vision and the partnership, not features, and not hard sell in terms of product. And then there's the whole commercial validation piece, converting that into those early trial partners into paying customers, where the product, in those early stages, just needs to deliver the value, just needs to be good enough. But again, it keeps the founder at the center of sales until the process is repeatable. These are the phases of early customer work. And like I'm embarking on a project now coming up over the next few months, where I did the feasibility for a very simple wind energy generating device. And this is that's just a simple conceptual drawing for it there. And we'll be embarking upon this process, where I've engaged with trial partners. Sorry, I've engaged with, did the customer discovery. Through that customer discovery work, was able to engage a number of organizations to be open to being trial partners. The focus here is on co-locating this simple wind energy generation device on a solar farm, for example, or on a mobile telecoms mast, telecommunications mast, or on a what's called a BESS, BESS, battery energy storage system, where there are farms in containers, transportation containers, holding batteries, where this simple wind energy generation device would be mounted, and would co-locate. And the focus there is obviously on just generating more energy from the same site, and hopefully reducing the overall payback period. So these are typically the phases at this early stage. And common early stage sales mistakes. And you can see here Steve Jobs saying, startups die from waiting too long. Stop planning the perfect product. Just ship it and make it better later. So waiting for product perfection before selling is a common early stage mistake. delegating sales too early to salespeople is a common early stage mistake. Confusing interest with buying intent. And I see that all the time, particularly when I have technical people on customer discovery calls. There's a confusion of interest with buying intent, and interest doesn't always translate into buying intent. Spending too long on lukewarm prospects. So those two go hand in hand together, where you're chasing after what you've interpreted as interest when really those prospects are lukewarm and, in all probability, probably won't ever buy. And then obviously, the classic technical person one, selling features instead of business outcomes. So, the early stuff has to be very focused on that sort of direct founder outreach. So in the same way that you'll be doing your customer discovery, as a next stage, you're utilizing email, LinkedIn, Teams calls, etc., going along to events, really to expand that activity and to continue in that mode of being very curious about the problems and trying to develop human relationships, because business is all about people. So you're looking to develop those human relationships and create lots of them at that early stage. Those can come from warm intros, but look, it's something that anyone with an idea who has the potential to be a founder needs to get through that. I'm seasoned at customer discovery, and I would never ever rely on the intros to go out there and have lots of conversations. You just need to get good at opening doors. There's lots of ways of doing it. Select PR, thought leadership pieces, all of that kind of stuff comes after the early traction. So the early traction is very important for startups, and you need to think about that not in the traditional sort of corporate way of how you generate demand. You got to think of it differently at the startup phase, and look, investors will have an appreciation of that. So the messaging principles for early sales are, as we've talked about, focusing on the customer's pain and the outcomes, keeping messages short, specific, and very much framed around value. And you've been taught this week, what is value, what is a good value proposition, and what is a not so good value proposition. They're all in the slides. If you've done early trials, if you have data from an early trial or a pilot, and that's pointing towards value, and you're able to case study that out, brilliant. Use those, case studies, use those examples, build stories around that, and always link any conversations you have to measurable benefits. And great if you can link those back to an actual trial. So, like, I've undertook 2 projects within the last 4 or 5 months, and through that work, I've got, I think, for each probably about 6 letters of support, letters of support from large organizations like Bank of England, Kingspan, for various projects. And through the conversations we had in customer discovery mode, you got to be ballsy. You got to ask the questions once you've established that, yes, those customer job pains and gains have been articulated, they're real. There's a severe enough pain there, and there's a motivation for a solution. Once you've established all of that, then asking the question, look, would your organization be open to a light touch trial that would allow us to deploy the technology in an early form and to allow you guys to test it and tell us what's working well, what isn't working well, etc. So you want to recruit a small set of early users that are willing to engage in that way with you, and that's doable. As I say, 2 projects in the last 3 or 4 months where I have 6 companies, all large reputable companies, all willing to engage on that basis. So that it's early access. You're offering them early access to a novel and innovative solution. They're influencing the roadmap, and it's providing you with close support. And it's not very much aligned with one particular company in terms of how they want it done. You're working with a number of trial partners, so that gives you an opportunity to shape it in the round, shall we say. And those structured pilots then should be designed in such a way that they'll prove that value quickly, and the referenceable result that you're really looking for. If you're demonstrating that there's a value proposition, you have the data, then obviously that's when you can start speaking to that whenever you're having new conversations with prospects, etc. You're keeping agreements clear, scope, timeline, expectations, mutual benefits, and all of that in the context of the trials. So look, I'm conscious of time here. So a lot of this stuff is probably just repeating some of the stuff that I have said already. So you can have a read of that in your own time. It's a good trial partner arrangements, time box, clearly scoped. They get early access and influence, and you get fast learning and proof. So, they're a partner. And then you'll only involve the salespeople after all of this activity. So after the founder has closed multiple deals, the customer profile is clear and documented, the buyer journey is mapped first. So the founder has, if you like, mapped the journey from first contact to close. They've done it a number of times. They've done it in such a way that they've demonstrated that it can be done, and hopefully that it's repeatable. They can then teach others to replicate what worked, and then you can transition to scalable sales.
Thanks, Kieran.
Any questions there, folks, just before we hand over to our guest speaker?
They're all dying to hear, Michael.
All good here.
All good here, Barry. Thanks a million.
So I see Michael is online there. So I'd like to introduce Michael Hopkins, Managing Director of Ross Polymer. So Michael is, as I said, the Managing Director. It's Ross Polymer is a single source contact manufacturing specializing in injection molding projects. Michael, before joining Ross, served as a PI here in TUS and APT. He's an alumni, studied his undergrad and PhD through TUS as well. And Michael, today we were just discussing about design thinking and going to market. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your history with that in Ross and other projects that you've worked on.
Yeah, look, thanks for intro, and hello to everybody on the call. I suppose we're in a bit of a whirlwind for me and the group and our business partners here from when we left the secure environment of an academic institute and a research institute to the real world to the real world basically. And I've lost a lot of hair since that. I don't know if you can sort of see, but no, it's been one of those things that was always on my radar. Innovation is really a part of me since I was growing up. I was always tinkering at things from an agricultural background. You're always tinkering at things and wondering how things work. It's just that sort of a technologist and innovator in me. But our journey to date, I suppose, there was essentially the first thing was there was an opportunity. A friend of mine had an engineering business, and there was an opportunity to supply large volume plastic products into a semiconductor facility in Ireland. So when that opportunity arises, it takes people decades to get into these facilities and to be on their AVL list of one of the world's largest semiconductor companies. Intel is the company in question. So when that opportunity arose, yeah, we looked at it. We kind of had to run before we could crawl in relation to the design of the product, get it in, get it submitted, and then deliver the product. And then off the back of that, the Ross Polymer Services company was sort of evolved into what we are now. And that being said, as semiconductor is one part of our business, it's always, and we want to try grow that business, but we also had a strategy around the medical and pharma space. And to have a clear strategy, because essentially we are a startup. Yeah, we have one project which led into another project, which gave us the sort of the financial backing to get the facility in position, to get the key staff, the team together. But we need a sustainable strategy in place to secure the future growth of the business. And medical and pharma, because of the industry we're in, the natural sort of geographic industry in Ireland is medical and pharma. That's our key focus. So that's where we are today. We have a range of products going to semiconductor. We have a range of medical and pharma customers, and we're continuing to grow in that space. It's definitely difficult. There's no ways about it. You don't grow a business 9 to 5, or it just doesn't work that way. It's all hours, it's weekends. You have to wear multiple hats in startups. Essentially, we always see ourselves, and our strategy is developed around a startup, because managing finances is very, very, very important. Watching every penny, watching your spend, and having a core. I suppose another thing, having a core team together that fully understands corporate finance, tax regimes, and then having a good technical team is very important. Because if you had a board of senior managers and we're all from a technical aspect, and all knew the technical aspect of what you want to do, what you offer really well, you're definitely going to fall down, because there's a huge portion of business success around your finance element. And if you don't get that right, you won't survive too long. So having a core team that knows all aspects really well is what I've learned is really, really important. I suppose around innovation, innovation is key to us to date, because when we got out there and like Kieran mentioned there about people do business with people, and when we understood our customer, we're always trying to learn, well, what's your next problem? What's the next problem coming down the road? Because trying to go with them with something, a product, and trying to, for example, trying to shove it down their throat, say, buy my product, buy my product. There's lots of other things going on that don't, it's very difficult to do that. But if you understand the problem they have, and then therefore you design a solution which entails is a product around that, it's a lot easier sell, and it's a lot easier sell for them in terms of their ROI. Saying, right, we have this product from a current vendor of ours, and it can save time, can save money. It's an easier sell. So try to solve someone's problem is very important in relation to try within your business to sell a product, and else that helps your innovation. So to have a team, to have a facility that has the capabilities in-house to innovate quickly, to fully understand the customer's pinch points, to what's their problems, and then essentially get a solution as quick as possible back to the table in front of them with as many questions answered as possible. What we found with the multinationals is going with part of a solution is, you might as well not go with any solution, because there'll be think, well, what about this and what about this, and it just mightn't sit well at all. And if you go with a prototype that doesn't really convey what the solution is, sometimes you can muddy the waters, and then your opportunity is gone. So at the outset, if it may cost, prototyping is very important to where we got to, and we had to spend a couple of thousand on various prototypes, which looked like they were functional prototypes. But essentially, when you pitch it to the customer and they're holding it in their hand, they say, "Oh yeah, this is perfect. Can we get these?" And then we have to roll it back, saying, "No, this is only a prototype." But if you go to a prototype that is somewhat rushed and somewhat does the job but doesn't look great, sometimes you could have someone in. I was in a meeting, and it was a 3D printed prototype, and it was we call it FDM. It's a very early stage 3D printing technology, but it's a fused deposition. It just uses filament. And it was a part of the product that was sort of loose. And all we could hear in the background of the meeting is this one, it was a commercial guy for Intel, and he was clipping. It's like he was clipping this product. He kept making this noise of pulling the little bit of a prototype and letting it snap back, and pulling it and letting it snap back. And everyone in the meeting was sort of drawn to this guy doing this, and that just scuppered the whole lot, because your prototype just wasn't absolutely perfect. And then we had to say, well, no, that's not the prototype, or that's not the actual finished product, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, you only get that opportunity once, and to get there with a really good prototype, a working demonstrator, as we call it, is key. Something you have to spend a little bit more of that time, but it's trying to understand that you only get one shot at this. And sometimes with those customers, and potentially they will cover some of the costs in that. So don't be afraid to ask the question. If customers are dealing with big multinationals and there's a cap cost there involved, and you're trying to watch the pennies in your startup, sometimes they will cover these costs, or cover half these costs, or a deal will cover full costs, or if you get the work. Don't be afraid to ask the question, because these guys want a solution. I suppose around innovation in medical is different and difficult, because they have their own internal innovation teams. And because of how highly regulated medical and pharma is, more so medical, when you get young engineers that have that innovative streak in them, sometimes that can be curtailed and more or less, absorbs any innovative aspect in them out of them, because they're in such a highly regulated environment that they cannot deviate from what the procedure is. So if you go in as an engineer and then they just find themselves, just going down a line of doing, sometimes they lose that little bit of spark of innovation, and that's what creates new products, novel products, is that person who has that sort of outside the box thinking. So medical in its ways can sort of curtail innovation in a way, and that's why, again, it's becoming more and more valuable for outside startups to bring that element of innovation to them, because sometimes their own internal innovating team or an R&D development team are sort of curtailed by the regulatory aspects inside. They're nearly afraid to think outside of the box of what to bring to the table. So, that's why any external, it's easier for them then to just bring in an external body and they can pitch whatever you want to them. But again, people do business with people. Getting in around these customers, cold calling is difficult. Go to trade fairs, go to any exhibitions in Ireland. There's so many. I'd say every week there's one or two on in Ireland. Go meet people. Don't be afraid to introduce yourselves. Don't be afraid to say what you do. And you just build up a natural network of people, and then just get to their facility and have a walk around and see, because a new set of eyes you say, well, what about this or what about that? I found that invaluable for what we're doing, just going to trade fairs, exhibitions, meeting people, telling them what we do, and that has become quite, in the pharma space now, it's becoming quite valuable to us at the minute, because it just came from conversations with people into they're looking for a certain solution and didn't think we did that, and all of a sudden then we had an offering to them in a couple of months' time. So it's yeah, I don't really know what else to say in relation. I don't know how it fits into the theme of sort of innovation and lean and startup, but
very good, Michael. Lots of good information there, lots of good tips. My own background, actually, and I'm going back a long time, is I was technical manager for an injection molding plant. So I've been in that space of working with customers on new ideas, new product, back in the early days of 3D CAD, where I was developing everything from parts for what we call the Eurofighter aircraft, now known as the Typhoon, to a replacement for the underwire in a bra. So not so much on the medical device side, but lots of stuff on the sort of electromechanical side. So yeah, I've been that soldier at a time. So very, very, very interesting to hear your perspectives. And yes, that your point's well made around leading with a deep curiosity on problems, because ultimately, as you say, selling a solution is hard when you don't fully understand the problem. But when you fully understand the problem, it becomes much easier.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Anyone any questions for Michael just while we have him on?
You sure? I know Junior anyway, so I better ask him a question. How's it going?
No problem.
No, I suppose kind of the same question I asked yesterday to the other guy. The message is quite similar in that you seem to have no issue leaving your original idea and, you know, ultimately following what the customer needs. But I suppose, you know, same thing to him yesterday. You know, what was your original? And okay, you mentioned the Intel thing, but what was the original ideas of setting up the company, and how far away from that original are you now after the couple of years you're in business?
It's a good question, to be honest. I think setting out when an opportunity, it's different from when if you sit down with a set of business partners and you say, we're going to set up this business from scratch. Yeah, and then when this is going to be our strategy. And a strategy will never be, people say, what's a strategy and how do I get to a strategy? The first place to start a strategy is in a room with a whiteboard and start trashing stuff out. And you'll never get it perfect on the right one. And a strategy might take 3 or 4 times to get it in place. And it mightn't be ideally what you want. But if you don't have some sort of a strategy, you're not setting out great. It's like if you go into town to buy some groceries, you have it in your head of what way you're sort of going. You know your endpoint would be one of the shops, but you know how you're going to get there. And there might be a crash on the way, and then well, I know another road this way, and I know another road that way. So it's kind of generally where you want to go. So I suppose setting out from scratch and the whole idea of yes, we're going to set up a business and it's going to be around this, and you get time to put all the correct procedures in place and your funding mechanisms in place, and where your potential more angel investors will come from. For us at the start, it was a bit more of a whirlwind because we got this opportunity from Now, which would be our parent company, which would be the engineering company. Essentially, we had a customer looking for a product straight away, and then from the sale of that product, we had a direct revenue stream. So you just couldn't ignore that. You had to put all your emphasis on that, delivering that product, delivering the product, invoicing and drawing down that funding. And then that funding ultimately gives you the key, it takes the pressure off in, right, buy the building, buy the equipment, develop our strategy. And that's taken 4 years to where we are now. So we've probably been we're about 3 years into what we sat down. So we delivered our first product. We are a business. We're generating turnover, and it's been probably 2 years of that until we got some sort of a strategy in relation to the medical pharma. And that strategy does change because everybody has a plan until you get a box in the nose. And I think that's one of the fighters said. So
yeah.
A new customer comes and they look for this, and I think a lot of your emphasis goes towards that. So therefore your strategy may sort of change a bit, but it's just difficult you just need a strategy, and you need some sort of where do you want to go? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Once you have that clear point, and we always set down and says we want to be a 10 million euro company, and we want to have 15 employees, and we want to be a contract injection molding manufacturer. How we get to that point may change, but in 5 years' time, 6 years' time, 7 years' time, that's the sort of value we want to put in our company. We want to be sustainable from a financial point of view. We want to have a clear growth of where we want to go. So how we get to that point might sort of change, but you need to have some sort of a finish line of where you want to be, in how successful you want your business to be, what your brand is, what you want to look at, and for your own self personally. For each, if there's a couple of people involved in a business or a startup, you need to step back out of that room and you need to ask yourself when you go home, what do I want from this? What I'm putting all my blood, sweat, and tears into this, but what do I want from it? Like, is it to help your family, or if you're putting a lot of this stuff is somewhat sort of selfish. If you don't bring your family and your partners and your kids into the picture, because a lot of their time is gone. So you need to bring them into the fold as a part of your strategy, so because it does affect them. But once they know that's what you're working towards and that's where you're going, you can build that into your strategy.
Michael, can I ask a question to you just
Yeah.
in regards to when you spoke about, I suppose, you were studying your PhD here. Would you have identified gaps through that, or did you have any startups at that time, or was it you studied for your PhD to achieve your end goal? Like where?
I
I
don't
know
know.
that you did. I know you didn't want to be a roofer anymore.
No, so essentially, yes, that's essentially where I came from, was the sort of construction sector. And I just knew I wanted to do more. I went to Australia years ago, came back, and I enjoyed my 20s, to be fair. And then I just see, right, there's more in me in relation to what I want to give back. And I went to college, and I just have that thing: when I start something, I need to finish it. So when you go into college, what's sort of the finish point in college would be your PhD. But when you go in, you kind of go, there's no way I'd be able for that. But then you get through your undergrad and you go, yeah, it wasn't too bad. And you sort of look at a master's and you go, yeah, well, that sort of evolves into a PhD. And then, of course, I was doing that part-time, and that got a little bit more challenge in terms of time management. But ultimately, I said to myself, I want to finish this. I want to start, because you're going back as a mature student and you want to say, I want to give it, I want to finish this. And it wasn't that I was going to do my PhD because I want to identify gaps in the market, because I wanted to set up a company. That was probably the most furthest thing away from my brain at that stage. I just wanted to get that over and done with, and have that part of my, no one can ever take it away from you again. You always have it. I'm looking at it in the press there, a big chunky book, and I never want to go near it again. But what does that mean? It builds up resilience, and that's something in this day and age with younger kids. It's finding it hard to instill resilience into kids. We had it naturally. When I say we, my age group, because you're probably our parents growing up in the 80s, and we didn't fully understand what that was like until we got a bit older and understand what sort of financial constraints they were under. So that built up resilience for them. We sort of built up resilience as growing up, because if we wanted anything, we had to work to get it. You didn't just get a Revolut and you had a few pounds in your pocket. You had to go out and work. So that was resilience that we didn't know we were getting. And then that said to me, when you're going to do other works or a PhD, where you hit sort of difficult times doing your PhD, and you just sort of go, you step back and you just go at it again, and you go at it again. And then that has just fed into what I'm doing now, where you do meet trouble sometimes and time to time, and you just step back and you go at it again, and that's just resilience. So I'd say that is the biggest value I could take out of doing a PhD, is learning that element of resilience, of keep going at a project, and you get to the end point. And I was never, after we finish and you do your viva and you do all that crack and you knew everything is complete and done, and I walked out of the room, and I was never so like underwhelmed in all my life, going, I was so stressed for 2.5 years, and the whole thing is done. Out of the meeting, and I was just walking out of the college, and it was just a normal day. And you're kind of going, what was this all about? So it's gas the way people look at things at the time, and you can laugh at it when you look back, but it's such, but it builds up resilience. And no, I didn't know I wanted to set up a business. I always knew I did at some stage, but when the opportunity arose, I couldn't. We have products now globally in Intel's foundries, and if you said that to me 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it at all. So that's always a great thing to look back on.
I have a little
Absolutely.
question there. Barry has his hand up there. If you want to ask away, Barry.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for chatting to us today. It was great to hear your story. I like what you were saying there about the resilience part. Obviously, you needed that to get through all your education, PhD, and now with your business. Now I'm currently studying digital health, background physio, but I'm trying to create a solution for predicting stress and preventing it, and wellness in the workspace for personal reasons, but also because there's an opportunity there. You said resilience was important for you, but looking back now, was there anything that you think you could have done differently, and did you have any experience with stress? Yeah.
Definitely, stress is force over area. Yeah, I definitely, still, everybody has stress. Everyone, people say that they're not. They do. Everybody has it. Yeah, definitely. Sport is a big thing in my life growing up, and when I stopped playing sport a couple of years ago, then you kind of understood what the sport did for you in relation to your mental health, because you're always going Tuesday, Friday, Sunday since we're about 10 years of age. And doing that activity and running about and playing football, you build up friendships, you built up, again, aspects of resilience playing in a team. But what it did for your sort of mental health, you didn't understand back then. Not until you stop doing it and then you find yourself a bit narky, months after, and you kind of go, what's this about? But because I was so used to that routine of a Tuesday, Friday, Sunday, you just weren't that active. So what was going on in sort of your brain in relation to stress relief and dealing with it, this is all building up on you, as well as education, as well as so then just understanding that and going, yeah, we need to get back doing something. So doing something then in the evening time, and it's not as much as you are, but at least you understand that and you can do that. So that's at least I could see that worked. So then I was going, yeah, well, that's work. And I don't do enough still. I still need to do more, but it's just balancing that. So looking back, I suppose having that bit of a to when I was stopping, to have something to say, right, I'm regimentally, I'm going to do that on a Sunday, and I'm going to do that, and keep doing it. I sort of let that slip a little bit. But that definitely helped with stress. Other sort of things is understanding, talking about stuff. Like there's a couple of problems that will come up with a business, and you think, oh God, how are we going to deal with this? But having a team within the business that you can talk about this stuff is hugely important. Because you think at a time, because you completely overthink it, and then you talk to some of your business partners, and they would know another aspect of the potential problems you're talking about, and you go, no, sure, we'll pick up a call tomorrow and we'll get it sorted. And then all of a sudden after that meeting, then it wasn't such a big problem as you thought it was. So keeping stuff to yourself and then overthinking that and bringing it home, and then be a pure anarchy when you're at home and you're yeah, people, your kids and partners or wives, they don't know what's the story, because you're overthinking a situation where you should have talked to someone within the business first to say, right, what's this about, or blah blah blah. So definitely that's hugely important, having that sort of outlet that you can talk to any aspect of within the business and that they know the story. Sort of bringing that stuff home sometimes can help, but within the business, if it's a business problem, absolutely, and then addressing those potential issues together as a business, that reduces stress. Yeah, but it's definitely there, and it's sort of learning to switch off. That's the thing I don't think I'll ever learn how to do, but I'm trying to. I have this thing now where I touch the door on the way out. Don't ask me why. So you just a little thing beside the door, and I just touch it 3 times, and I just walk out, and that just is like a switch to say I'm going home now. And we try to do that with a lot of the guys here. When you go home, just go home. Just relax, do whatever you're doing. And a lot of this, I think it doesn't help from people who work from home. It's difficult because you're always in that environment. You're always the body and the brain thinks you're always at work, or because you're in the same environment. But you're at home, so the body, I think when people leave work and you drive home, when you get home, then the body knows and the mind knows you're at home now, and you can sort of switch off.
Yes.
So it's hugely important for all those things. Yeah, I think stress is always going to be there. It's learning how to deal with it, and talking to people within the business, at home. If it's sport's hugely important as well.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Michael. So communication, structure seems to be important, and then having the right people around you, and I love the touching the door when you're leaving.
I don't know.
It's like a prompt. It's like a prompt for.
Yeah, and I got a bit sort of. People say, is it OCD? I don't think I have OCD, but I don't know. If I was like turning up the TV channels or the volume, it has to be on an even number when you finish. But I left here.
I'd say you're just very self-aware.
I left the factory one day and I forgot to do it, and I came back to do it.
Oh Lord! And
that was like that. You could say that's complete stupidity, but then that would annoy me the whole way home that you didn't do it. But I think another thing is to find out. A lot of people can advise you in what to do, but you know yourself. Everybody knows your own self. You know if you're doing the right thing, if you're not doing the right thing. The only person that can sort of really knows yourself is yourself. So when people sort of tell you toward an advice towards something, take it on board and go, yeah, that. But I think I know I like doing this way. So it's you always know yourself. It's good to get. Yeah, your gut feeling is another thing. Yeah, as well. If you think something is just not right, you know yourself. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Michael. So we're going to wrap it up there today. If anybody has any other questions, tomorrow is Friday and we will be finished then. And so tomorrow is the excitement bit of financial planning. And no, we also have a little bit of about grants in there tomorrow and IP. Tomorrow we have a little bit of mixture. We have Kieran will be presenting. We'll also have Pader from our own team here. And we also have a guest speaker coming in that was with the New Frontiers project here in Athlone. So that's it, folks.
Brilliant. Thanks a million, Michael. Really enjoyed
Thank you,
listening to your
Michael.
story.
Thanks,
Thank you
guys.
for being open and sharing with us. Really
Yeah,
appreciate
no
that.
problem. And if anybody wants any injection molding capabilities, you know, we just have to get that plug out there.
Brilliant.
Thanks,
Thanks,
William.
guys. Cheers.
Thanks all.
Cheers now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
See you.
Cheers, Junior. Bye. Good luck.
Bye.